But let me tell you a little story. In 1999, I was an undergraduate student of pharmacy. It was one of the first lectures that I received. And the lecturer just wanted to give us a flavor of how important was to study pharmacy and how important was to do research to understand how drugs can act on the organism. He gave us a name, and the name was Salvador Moncada. Then I learned how he discovered the mechanism by how aspirin could also act not only as a painkiller, but also in lower doses, inhibiting the platelet activity, so then helping to prevent cardiovascular events, heart attacks, and strokes. I was fascinated. And a year later, some other lecturer speak us about how important was prostacyclin, another metabolite of the one of the most important pathways in the organism, which is regulating the vasodilation. 5 years later, I decided to enroll in a PhD, and I decided my field was going to be pharmacology. And again, Professor Moncada's name came up, since my thesis was a part of my thesis, was all about cardiovascular pharmacology and nitric oxide. And why nitric oxide? Because he was the one who discovered and described the mechanism on how nitric oxide was being released by the endothelium and induce vascular dilation, and also be a very active and important factor in the regulation of the cardiovascular system. Then I had the opportunity to hear him speaking in an international congress of pharmacology, and then I understood how important was all his contribution to understand the moving from classical to modern pharmacology. Indeed, Professor Salvador CERU Salvador Moncada is an Honduran/British pharmacologist. He born in Tegucigalpa. He studied medicine at Universidad de El Salvador and earned a PhD with Sir John Bain in the Department of Pharmacology in the Institute of Basic Medical Science in the Royal College of Surgeons. He was the researcher of the Welcome Research Laboratories from 1986 to 1995, and until 2012 he was the director of the UCL Wolfson Institute, which he established in 1996. Nowadays he is professor of translational medicine and strategic scientific advisor at the new Center for Cellular Metabolism in the Manchester University. His research interests include inflammation and vascular biology and regulation of cell proliferation. His scientific contributions are essential to understand pharmacology, especially in the field of cardiovascular biology. He took part on the discovery, as I said, about aspirin-like drugs inhibiting prostaglandin biosynthesis, and led the team that discovered the enzyme thromboxane synthase and vasodilator prostacyclin, as I said. Other compounds he characterized include lamotrigine, an antiepileptic compound, atovaquone, an antimalarial, somin for the treatment of migraine and headaches, and he pioneered the development of lapatinib for the treatment of breast cancer. As I said, he's acknowledged for the identification of nitric oxide. Let me say something. All of his work, as he mentioned in a couple of interviews, help other people to get the Nobel Prize. Hopefully. But this is not important, this is just a prize, and all the work is present in the literature, and we all know how important is your work. Among a bit of number of honors and awards, Professor Moncada is current fellow of the Royal Society since 1988 and holds the Royal Medal since 1994. He was awarded a knighthood for service to science in January 2010. He was awarded in 1990 with the Prince of Asturias Award for Scientific and Technological Research. He's been received honorary degree from more than 20 universities, and also is one of the most cited scientists in the world. He recently this year has been awarded with one of the most important, most prestigious awards for excellence in biomedical science, the Ernst Young Gold Medal. And also he's committed with the development of science and technology in Latin America. He has been a consultant of the Pan American Health Organization, and in recent years he founded Honduras Global, an international network of experts involved in supporting the development of Honduras. This foundation is made by Honduran scientists around the world to help Honduran society to develop. It was a year ago when some of us had the opportunity to approach him, especially our Vice President Maria, in a meeting in the Royal Society, and I have to say that I was shocked. After all the things that I told you, to have in front of me Salvador Moncada was a bit impressive. But Maria introduced our society very well, and he was very glad to help us, to contribute with us, and being here, as you can see, to give us a talk. So he fulfills his promise. Professor Moncada, I think I'm speaking on behalf of all of us when I say thanks for coming. We are excited to have you in here with us, and I'm sure we will be inspired by your experience, and also we'll have a productive discussion afterwards. So now it's your turn.
Buenas tardes, gracias Eduardo por la introducción generosa. Después de todo lo que dijo Eduardo, no voy a hablar de nada de eso. So, one of the most impressive things in the last 15-20 years is that science has become a global enterprise, and that the number of scientists in the world is increasing dramatically. And at the moment, and this is all based on a report that the Royal Society prepared in 2010, the international R&D spending in the world is over $1,000 billion, and that represents a 45% increase over the year 2002. It has been calculated that there are about 7 million researchers around the world publishing 1.6 million papers in 25,000 journals every year. And that continues increasing in a very dramatic way. And the other characteristic, which is very important, is that the science not only is global, but is becoming more and more collaborative and interconnected. The international collaboration in science is again on the rise. It's all the time increasing. And today, and this is 2010, 35% of our articles published are international and collaborative. And that is 25% more than 15 years ago. So the science enterprise is becoming much bigger, the science enterprise is going much faster, and the science enterprise is becoming more and more interconnected. And the interesting thing is that after years in which institutions have been discussing about collaborative work and getting together and creating interfaces between institutions, the decisions to make these things happen from the top usually don't work. The way they work is the way they are working increasingly by the scientists themselves at the bench level, deciding who they collaborate with and how do they collaborate with. So this has to be a bottom-up exercise rather than a top-down exercise. If you go to any university, you will see that there are hundreds of convenios between universities that don't lead to much. But if scientists at the bench level understand that they want to work with people in other places, that immediately becomes an efficient and effective interaction. Not only the best people they choose, the best institutions, the best infrastructure which is complementary to what they do. And what is actually happening is that the revolution in communication is creating a situation in which that is increasingly possible. Not only to the formal channels of communication, but channels which are virtual, like the diaspora communities that I will talk a little bit more about, virtual global networks and professional communities sharing interests. All these are very important drivers of the collaboration. And to be here this morning and to see all of you young people so interested in getting together and working together and establishing links is part of what is happening around the world. There is more and more interest in developing this type of organizations, and therefore the scientific enterprise from the base is becoming stronger and stronger. There is no doubt, and that's known, that scientific collaboration enhances and improves the quality of the scientific research, the efficiency and effectiveness of scientific research, and the most important driver of all this is that international collaborations are increasingly necessary because the problems that need to be sorted out, the problems that are in front of us in the future, are problems that require international collaboration, synergism, and sharing. And science is becoming more expensive, and therefore the other driver for this is the fact that through international collaboration, the possibility of the investment in science being less and more effective is one thing that is obviously important. And what has made the big difference in the last 20 years is the development of the big revolution in communication and the access of internet worldwide. These are per region. This is the millions of people, and the access to the internet in the year 2000, and then the access to the internet in the year 2010. In the United States and Canada, 108 million people had access to the internet in 2000, and 266 million in 2010. In Europe, again, there is a very significant increase from 2000, with a population of 813 million people. 105 million had internet in 2000, and 475, already 50% of the population, had access to the internet in the year 2010. And so on and so forth. In all places in the world, the access to the internet is becoming more and more effective, and not only more and more effective, but more interconnected. And the one thing that has become evident in the last few years is that the digitalization of information and the internet have facilitated the application of knowledge to economic activity, becoming a predominant factor in the creation of wealth. The evidence that the access to the internet and the intercommunication is having a direct impact on the economy is becoming absolutely clear. And therefore, one of the drivers of economical development. The second point that probably starts relating to some of the things we suffer is the problem of the scientists leaving the countries and going to work abroad. this is what has happened over the years. The scientists are going, and very few are coming back, and the ones who come back are not well received. The infrastructure is not there, the grants are not given, the promises are not fulfilled, and so on and so forth. And that creates a situation in which the people who made the effort to go back end up leaving the country. Obviously, Honduras is not an example, and 40 years ago is not an example either. But I made an attempt to go back to Honduras in 1975, and there was no possibility of working, so I ended up coming back here and never again thought about going there. Now, what is happening is that some countries are becoming aware of this and are doing something about it. And some countries have been very successful in repatriating and bringing the scientists back. The first time that I became aware of this is about 20 years ago when I was in a visit to China, invited by the Academy of Sciences of China. And the person who was my guide told me all the different things they were planning to do, not only to bring the scientists back, but to make sure that the scientists who were abroad were contributing in one way or another to the development of the science in China. Something like what you were saying. They had the concept that they should contribute in whichever way they want. Either just attend the lecture, or give a lecture, or go to the parties, or whatever. At that time, the Chinese had people with a checkbook that would go to the United States and visit all the Chinese scientists and would do precisely that and say, what do you do here? And what would you like and can do for China? And the person would say, I would go back one day a year to give a lecture. Sign. The other one said, I can come for 2 weeks. Sign. And some of them started to sign into a bigger commitment, including the fact very early on people who had appointments in the United States and in China for structures that were exactly the same. We are going to create for you an Institute of Molecular Biology in China, which is exactly the same as the one you run in Kansas City, provided you come 3 months a year. So they were promoting all the time the connection at different levels. They didn't care what level it was, provided everybody was getting engaged. And I said to him, and that's what was left from that visit, I said to him, so you are trying to reverse the brain drain? And he said to me, we never had brain drain. We were incubating our brains in the United States. So there are now hundreds of examples of projects and programs that the countries are doing based on the example of not only China, but India, who very successfully created networks to make their nationals participate in the scientific development and also in the economical development. The Chinese did it more or less the way I have been describing to you, but the Indians did it in an even more interesting way, because what they did was to even decide to change all the system of laws and to take away all the red tape that was impeding the possibility of investment in the country. The scientists from India were, many of them, connected to economical activity in Silicon Valley, in other places. And the Indians wanted not only to bring the scientists, but to bring the expertise for applications of science. And they did something that is necessary in some countries, perhaps Spain is one of them, is to get rid of the red tape. The day in which the red tape disappears in Spain, I think Spain will have made a very, very important step forward. And so many people who came back with connections, economical and scientific connections in the United States, were the people who founded the Indian companies that now are competing with the big American multinationals in different fields. In the field of computation, in the field of bioinformatics and so on, are these people who then were promoted to come back, the people who were responsible for these developments, which were not only just in the creation of knowledge, but also directly in the creation of wealth. And one of the things that would be worthwhile, which I didn't do extensively, was to look at all the different things that have been done by the countries which are successfully applying this policy of bringing back their scientists. One of them, which is very impressive, is this program in Brazil, which was started in 2011, which is the idea of sending 100,000 Brazilian students, PhDs, to go out, to be trained in the best places, and to bring them back with a position to work in an infrastructure that works with a career progression plan. Many years ago, we tried to do that in Spain by a program which I created when I created the CINI, which was called the 3x3, which is we used to choose the best possible people, we used to send them to the best possible places with the promise of repatriating them with 3 years salary and 3 years possibilities of work, after which they should become increasingly independent. That was a forerunner of the Ramon y Cajal program that from one day to another was closed. When I left, it was closed. The people were they received letters saying the program 3x3 is closed. So find a way of surviving, either come back or. The Brazilians are not only doing that, but at the same time, in their own institutes, in their own infrastructure, in their research, they are trying to attract people in the middle of their careers, people with success already, that want to come and work in Brazil and establish themselves in Brazil. So not only the training and the bringing back, but also the bringing international scientists in Brazil for the development of the infrastructure and the science. This is an interesting graph which shows country by country, or some examples of first foreign scientists in that country, in dark blue, and scientists of that country working abroad. And the two extremes, so you can follow the graph, are India and the United States. India has very few scientists born abroad working in India still, and has many of its scientists outside. It's having percentage. While the United States has a lot of people from abroad working in the United States, and few of the people of the United States are working abroad. And so on, and so forth. Brazil and Spain, you can see Spain here, France, Canada, and so on. So not only the science is internationally connected, interconnected, communicative and so on, but the people are moving enormously around the world, and the world is becoming one. And this mobility, and in the base of this mobility, and trying to modulate this mobility, are the different countries who are trying to develop their own scientific base infrastructure and the generation of intellectual property in that country. At the end of the day, the society of the future will be the society that generates knowledge, that can convert it into intellectual property, and can transfer the knowledge into the possibility of practical applications, creation of wealth, and distribution of wealth. So they asked me to say something about Honduras Global. And this came from the conversation with the Chinese. I realized at the time that everywhere I went, and I found a Honduran, the first thing they say is, yes, I have been away for 10, 15 years, but I still think about the country. I still feel that I'm connected. I would like to do something, but there is nothing we can do. So we said, can we create a virtual network? And this is about 6 or 7 years ago. A virtual network of people from Honduras who are abroad, who have been successful, who want to help. And this organization will be just a conduit that will help them to do what they want to do. So we open it up, and we not only have scientists, we have entrepreneurs, we have fashion designers. There are a couple of fashion designers of Honduras who are very famous now in the United States. We have cooks, we have everything. And they are connected, and we create a situation in which we identify problems that they can come and help with in Honduras. And that has been very successful because we have managed to connect people successfully. And I discussed with the government that instead of bringing somebody, a technical person who comes as an advisor for a program, and he comes from Korea or from Japan or who knows from where, if you have a Honduran with the same type of expertise and knowledge who can come and help, you are getting not only the expertise, but you are getting the wanting to do it. And I think that is the big advantage of this type of diaspora network, is that the people who come from the country really want to be involved with the helping of the country. So there is an emotional commitment which doesn't exist in the international advisor. And Honduras, which is a poor country, spends millions of dollars bringing people to advise on this and the other. And I think all the countries have a diaspora that can be usefully be harnessed for the development of the country. So the other thing that I was saying is that the challenges that are in front of us, all of them require interconnection. It requires everybody to participate. The problems, these are not all of them, but these are probably the most significant. The problem of the climate change, the problem of the water and food and energy security in the world, the problem of the change in population, the structure of the population pyramid is changing into an aging population in the world with all the consequences, and that requires an international approach to it, from the problem of health to the problem of epidemiology, public health, economy, and so on. And obviously one of the big problems is the problem of the loss of biodiversity, and that requires an international effort. So all the global challenges are interdependent and interrelated, and there is no way of going out of the problem that science is absolutely essential to solve this. Lessons can be drawn from existing models in which there have been collaboration and impact in the activity, in the solution of these problems, and this comes from the Royal Society again. All the countries have a role in the global effort to tackle this challenge. But there are problems. One of them, which is very important, is that the national governments need to maintain investment in their science base to secure economic prosperity. The countries need una política científica. One of the big problems is that Spain doesn't have a política científica. There is no strategy. And you know that science needs nurturing, science needs investment for long periods to be successful. Between 2002 and 2008, the investment in researchers, individual researchers in Spain went up by 23-24%, the good years of investment in science. From 2003 to 2008, there was an increase in about 23 to 25% investment per scientist in Spain. From 2008 to 2012, there has been a reduction of 45%. You cannot do science like that. And the international activities and collaborations should be embedded in the national science and innovation strategy. You can read in the editorials, including one in Nature recently, that Spain is not ready to continue the commitments in some international bodies in which Spain has had commitment. And that's a terrible mistake. And obviously the big problem is that science is seen as, especially the creation of knowledge, is seen as something that doesn't generate money immediately. It's not an economical activity. And therefore, we cut the investment in science. First moment that there is a crisis, science is the first thing that suffers. And that is one of the big problems, because there is, again, to mention, science needs support for long periods to be successful. It takes generations of scientists to create something. And it takes 4 years of lack of investment to destroy something that has taken years to create. That's the problem of science. No doubt that the economy has an impact in the way we do science and the way we invest in science. And the global recession of 2008 has had an impact in general in the production of scientific production in the main countries, and the emerging countries are starting to produce more and more science. This is just in terms of publications, 2002 and 2008, the contribution of Europe and the United States, North America, has slightly gone down, and the contribution, for example, of Asia, you can see that has gone up. But the countries contribute in a very uneven way to the scientific enterprise. This is an interesting table which shows the gross national product, the contribution of each of these countries to the gross national product of the world in 2002 and 2007. And this is the contribution to the investment in science and technology. The United States, which has gone down as percentage of the world gross national product in these years, has also gone down in terms of its contribution to science and technology, but it produces more of the science and technology, invests more of the science and technology than its own contribution to the gross national product in the world. Countries like Mexico have gone a little bit up, but their contribution to development of science and technology is very low. And this is Brazil, and these are the numbers for Spain, but this is a few years ago. It's likely that the contribution of Spain has been going down in the last 3 or 4 years. And this is the research expenditure by the different regions as percentage of the gross national product. The gross national product, Canada and the United States are here, Asia is here, and the different countries. This was prepared mainly to show the Latin American contribution. But this is the research expenditure of the, as percentage of the gross national product of the country. North America invests 2.63% of the gross national product. Latin America 0.82, Europe 176 as Europe, Asia 189, and these countries. Spain does much less than this, which is the mean. And the objective, which is interesting, and this is an interesting discussion to be had, the objective of increasing the expenditure in R&D as percentage of the gross national product, the way Spain is planning to do it is probably not the right way. Why? Because instead, they are effectively reducing the support to the scientific base and substituting it in credits to industry, thinking that they will stimulate the industry to do science and technology. Spain doesn't have an industry that requires science and technology. These are very general statements, of course. And because of that, the credits that they are putting for the development of industry-based research are not being used, while the money which is being put for research proper is being reduced. So probably that scheme is not going to be successful in terms of first stimulating the development of the scientific base, and secondly, which is more important, creating an industry which will require science and technology and therefore will require the scientific base to exist. Even the countries which are investing a lot, the BRIC countries, which are now so famous, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. This is the global world product, $70 trillion. The BRIC countries represent 43% of the world population. They generate only 90% of this, and they spend a pitiful 1.26% of the GDP in the development of R&D. So even those countries which are doing a lot, and I was praising, are doing much less than we should be doing. Not to talk about the ones who are not doing anything. And the other problem is the problem of education. One of the big problems is the quality of the education at the university level. This is a ranking, the Shanghai University ranking of the universities in the world. These are the top 50 universities, the top 100, the top 200, 300, 400. 38 of the first 50 universities are in North America, and 12 are in Europe. It's none in Spain. Of the top 100, 57 are in North America, 33 in Europe, still none in Spain. The quality of the training at the university level is low, and it should be increased, and it should be modernized. For many years, some of us have been saying, what now is common discussion, is that the problem of the Spanish university is that it's organized in an 18th century concept. And everybody who achieves the position of funcionario in the university has no incentive for life to do anything else but to sit in the desk and not do very much. The system has to be created in which there is competition based on excellence in production for the universities not only to become more dynamic, but also to increase the quality of the teaching by doing scientific research of a higher level. Obviously, what is becoming very clear is that the investment in science and development of science requires government investment, requires private investment, requires international investment, and the most developed countries have a very significant amount of the investment in research, in the development of R&D, coming from private sources, from industry. And I think this is what Spain, the present government in Spain is trying to do. But if you don't have an industry that requires science and innovation, which is not an industry based on innovation itself, then it doesn't matter how much money you put, it's not going to develop. It's not going to develop from there the need to use science and technology. And although Spain is not so low in terms of private investment into science, it's lower than what it should be being a European country. So it's necessary to find a way of solving the problem of linking the industry to the need of having knowledge generation. And I couldn't find the numbers for this, but I suspect if we find them, they will be very bad for Spain. This is the patents by region, the number of patents in 2000 and 2012. This is the United States and Canada. In 2000, 88,487 patents, 126,801 in Canada. I don't know what the numbers are for Spain, but it would be worthwhile seeing, separate from Europe, what is the number of patents that Spain takes for new research. I was trying to illustrate this because the situation in Latin America is very bad. In Latin America, we don't patent anything. And even important technologies which are spreading in the world have never been patented. All the technology for the development of the engine that burns alcohol, that is now Brazil is exporting everywhere in the world, is teaching everybody to make cars that burn alcohol. None of that was patented. So there is no protection for that. So this is one of the things that has to be changed, because the creation of knowledge and the protection of knowledge, to be able to use it effectively for the creation of wealth, is going to be an important part of the future. So, the problem of the development of science, this is a summary, is obviously training. But if we could ensure that each of you, when you finish, have the possibility of going back to Spain, have a place to work, and a secure career path, an investment that will allow you to actually do science the way science needs to be done, that would be a success. I think there are too many people outside that cannot come back, and there are too many people who come back and then have to leave again. And this has to be corrected. And one of the functions of societies like this should be to suggest, to discuss this specific problem. There is a need for the development of infrastructure. Latin America trained thousands of PhDs in the last 25, 30 years. But they went back and there was nothing to do. There was no infrastructure, there was no laboratory, there were no support mechanism. All the bureaucracy was such that you ask for a grant and it took 5 years for you to get the grant in Venezuela, for example. Sometimes you have the systems, but the bureaucracy and the red tape that we were talking about is so horrible that even people decide not to apply because it becomes a nightmare filling the forms and phoning and saying and waiting. La convocatoria will come in 12 months, no. In 14 months, no. In 17 months, no. Next year. And people are sitting there unable to do things. And there is a need for creating conditions of return. Spain has not that problem. It's a beautiful country to live in. But if you go back to India, having lived in California, they have to create conditions. And in India, where close to Bangalore, they have created areas, secluded areas, in which they have developed houses and infrastructure for the people who come back. And you go there and you think you are in California. And the other thing which is being favored by the developments, the modern developments of communication, is the development of networking and communication. For many years, one had the impression, and I used to say this, and probably was bad, Spain is too big and too self-contained. All right? So it doesn't see the world. Because everything is all right, more or less there. And that has to be broken. You cannot be any more isolated. Probably one of the earliest experiments of what you do here, we did it in 1989 in the Cynic. When we started to recruit people, we said, we're going to speak all English here. Yes. Everybody spoke English when we started. I think that was important. That looked as if it didn't have any importance, but it did have, because it increased communication. In the centers in which science is being carried out, they speak English. They speak English. You go to Germany, you go to Sweden, you go to Belgium, and everywhere they speak English. And until 15, 20 years ago, you went to Spain and nobody spoke English. That's disappearing. And that's very important for the creation of this networking and cultural connection. There are some science networks in Latin America, and Spain, as you can see, is at least part of one of them. And this is certainly facilitating the communication in terms of information and cooperation. And this is my hobby horse, because there is always a discussion of what do we work on? Applied research, fundamental research, translational research. I said, why don't we work in good research? It doesn't matter. And one of the criteria we used when we set up the institute at UCL was, we are not in any area of research. We are in the area of research where we can get the best people. And science will find its way by generating knowledge of blind. I think there is too much emphasis now in the application of science. You have to write a grant, not only in Spain, but here, that has to have 300 times the word's translation.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected. Goodbye.
Sorry, I will stop.
The timing.
Huh? Finish.
No,
The recording is finished. Now you can tell the truth.
Now we can I think there is too much, the pendulum has gone too much on the side of translation. I work in industry for many years, and I was dedicated to do science to make medicine. And if you don't make the medicines, you don't sell, and if you don't sell, you don't have a job. In industry, very clear. But I think that pressure that is on academic environment to generate something that has practical applications has gone too far. I think there is a base of science which should work completely flexible, allowing the best people to do exactly what they want. If we don't have that, we are not going to generate the things that are going to be the things that we will develop in the future. We are castrating the base of the science. There has to be a level in science in which we don't talk about translations. We talk about the problem we want to solve. And the successful science, unfortunately or fortunately, has always been like that. I always say you have to separate the base from the people who are thinking about translating. You cannot go and say that to the best neuroscientist, make me the cure for Alzheimer's tomorrow. Because that's not his job or her job. And there is a confusion at the moment in that particular area with the emphasis, excessive emphasis on translational research. We need to allow and to nurture the scientific base to have the generation of knowledge that will allow later to be translated into practical applications, into wealth, and so on and so forth. That says it all. You do not just what you want to do, you do what you can do. And if you combine it effectively, you will do useful things. It's really a pleasure to have been here with you. So many young people are working together is the best thing. Good luck. Thank you.
Well, I have to say that he was worried because that wasn't his subject. Now we are going to allow some minutes to allow the audience to ask you some questions. But first, I'd like to thank you again for saying at the end yes for this subject, because we were sure and we now confirm that this talk was going to be something really interesting and also inspiring. And I hope you have a lot of questions. I'm gonna have the opportunity to be the first one asking. Sorry about that. But I really want to know from your voice, what do you think about our society? Is now you know a little bit more. And also, how do you think we can help to improve the current situation of Spanish science from here, from UK, because we really want to build this bridges in between UK and Spain. And so, what is your advice?
Well, when I saw the list of activities that you read, I think you are doing it all. I think that networking, interfacing, exchanging ideas, working together is very important. One thing which I didn't mention, and I said to you beforehand, which when I was working in Spain in the late 1980s, I suggested many, many times, and didn't work, is that an organization should be created of scientists, of excellent scientists, Spanish scientists, that would resemble the Royal Society or the American Academy of Sciences, which becomes a group of consultation and a group of direction for the government in terms of science policy, in terms of decisions about scientific activities and so on. In this country and in the United States, for example, the government doesn't move in scientific areas before it consults those organizations. And Spain doesn't have that type of structure. Perhaps it would be worthwhile starting to talk, not now, but in the future, to create, because the academies which exist are not doing political job, which is important in terms of interfacing with the government and making the points that need to be made. But at the moment, I think the experiments that you are doing in interfacing and communicating are very good, including the pint of knowledge.
Well, no, I guess it's a good objective for all of us whoever want to come back to Spain and work there, be organized there, and probably in the future we will be able to establish a kind of royal institution. Not sure if it will be royal or not, but so any questions from the audience? Maria.
Can I ask, because the fact that the Spanish universities are never in the top links, and we've been in the bottom for so many years, it's hard to believe, and there is none of the big universities in Spain are trying or are even trying to make an effort in getting in those. And I don't know what needs to be changed. There is a lot of things that needs to be changed, but I don't see any little steps, and I don't know how to drive that. How do you think that we can drive to start having little steps so that we get into better positions? Because also yet we are all coming from Spanish universities. We've all done our studies and our postdocs there. And when I arrived here, there was not much difference between my level of knowledge or efficiency in the lab than there were from the people in the UK, and yet, and I arrived straight from Universidad Complutense, Universidad Alcalá, who I don't know, I think it's in the level 300 or something like that, into Imperial College. And then in Imperial College, I was totally level with the people that were there, and I had done as many flow cytometry and things like that. So it is true that we don't reach in the league tables we're very, very bad, but the level of training that we get in terms of PhDs and education is not, it's not that bad.
Not only that, I mean, we haven't said that, but with the funds that Spain dedicates to R&D and to education, Spain does incredibly well. The scientific production of the CSIC, for example, is the top. It's one of the top institutions in the world producing science. Yeah, but the investment in the CSIC is what, 400 million euros, 450 million euros, which compared with the CNRS in France is 2,000 million euros. So one of the things I very often say is that the Spanish scientists, or that Spain has an enormous talent that is not being exploited. If this is what we can do in the very bad political situation in which we are, imagine what we could do if we had the resources to do it, sort of thing. But yes, the training is good, but the universities could be much more dynamic and much more productive. I think at the moment they are frozen in a situation which doesn't allow them to move, to reach higher level. It has been good, but nobody thinks about the possibility that it can be much better. That's what I think.
But I don't know if the change has to be from outside, like you said, from bottom up, or from top to bottom, or possibly it would have to be a very big combination.
Well, every time I mention in Spain that there should be a new lay universidades, modern, everybody changes subject. There seems to be a very big political problem there that doesn't allow to touch the university. There is a need for a bottom-up process, but there is a need for a bottom-down process in which the country decides we want to have this type of university, not the ones we have, sort of thing. But there is a tendency, and I think it's changing. But when I was there, in the sending, we decided that people would come and would not have positions of functionary. There were no permanent positions. Everybody would come and survive in terms of excellence and achievement, and we evaluated and the contracts will be extended. What surprised me is that everybody who came from here, who had been 4 or 5 years in the United States, in Europe, everybody accepted that that was perfect. And we brought people, Spanish people, to work, and they were very happy. The second year they were there, they were looking for a job at the SRUK, because everybody felt much better having a permanent position, obviously. And the culture was forcing them to move into that mode. And as soon as they got a position in the SRUK, yeah.
Could it be possible to combine both? Combine both models, having permanent positions but at the same time promoting achievements by getting extra salaries?
But there are no, there are permanent positions in the universities in the UK and in the United States. But the areas of scientific productivity, there should be an incentive to produce. There should be evaluation. But if you, for example, for 20 years you get your grants, you get your laboratory, you produce the science at the age of 50 or something, good, you get a permanent position. You deserve it. I think a combination of the two systems is a good one. And what I was saying before when we were discussing is that even the old people, which in Europe is not used effectively, the American universities use the old people more effectively. You have to retire here in Europe at 65, 67, or in Spain at 70. In the United States, as long as you are competitive and you continue getting your grants, the university keeps your laboratory and keeps your infrastructure going, which I think is the best thing, because the people at the age of 70, 75 might not be at the most productive, but the influence of good people who have done good science on the environment is very positive. I say now that I'm I don't know if I thought that when I was your age.
Let's see if I can set up the question well. You said, like, this pendulum that goes, it seems to go from basic to translational to, and still, I guess, the problem is that when you've got a budget, you have to divide it between how much do you put in basic, how much do you put in translational. And I guess that this exercise of being clever about how you distribute it should be developed or agreed by the people doing the science who really know the field, which is so in terms of how we network and how we create societies and how we can influence the political decisions based on our experience and how do we think that a particular field goes. How do you think that the structures that we've got now in Spain and the structures like us that could provide some advice based on what we are seeing outside could influence society so that they see the importance of the political decisions in this matter?
Well, I am not, I don't know enough about the situation in Spain to make comments about what is happening. I said what I think you could do, and I think you are doing great already by being here together and going to the pub and having a meal together. That's already a very important step. I think in the last few years, Spain has been influenced by the crisis, the economic crisis, and influenced by the fashion, has been trying to move all the scientific base into the economy to see if something happens. That doesn't happen automatically, not because you do that or you change the ministry of this and you pass it to economy. It's going to be productive tomorrow. All right, those are the things which obviously are not going to, and the reduction in budget is not going to lead, as the minister says, to better science because we're going to clean the bad part, because we are not. That means a whole culture, which is what I'm saying. You need to develop a culture that will take a whole generation to develop before all these things happen.
In your opinion, how would be a good strategy to create that culture in Spain? Not here, because here is different, of course, but in Spain.
The best thing would be to develop infrastructure in Spain and to bring you all to positions where you can have an activity which is successful. To bring all the people to do science.
I would like to ask you something. The manuscript by the SRUK and now the government doesn't spend a lot of money on science. What do you think about an association passing crowdfunding that to collect money from the private sector to keep our research active?
Collect money from the private sector for what? For
like person like us, for example, you can quantity that money. Some people think that
like crowdfunding or charities or trust.
The other initiatives to get funded, and
for yourself.
to develop, to perform science and to produce as well, not just for the government, as you said, because then we have been very sensitive with the funds. And if there's no money, and the government is the main source of money to do science, for us it's a problem. If we have more help from other sectors, like private sector, and as you said, crowdfunding or charities, that we don't have that thing, let's say in Spain, do you think that would improve?
Let me talk about charities first, because in Europe there is no culture of charitable donation. That's one of the big problems and the big differences in the United States. If you look at the money that charity gives for societal activities in Europe compared to the United States, the difference is enormous. And in the United States there are tax incentives and a series of measurements which create the possibility of getting charitable money. I mean, it's not strange for a university in the United States to receive a donation, even anonymous donation, for $50 million. Let's see how many donations of 50 million euros has received anybody in Europe. There is no culture for that.
There is in the UK though, isn't there?
But
I'm funded by
compared
charity.
to,
I'm funded by a charity here, PHF, which is Heart Foundation.
Yeah.
They move loads of money.
yes, of all the European countries, this is the closest one to the United States in that respect. And yes, the Welcome Trust is that. Yeah.
That maybe could help. I mean, because from my point of view, when we speak in Spain about private investment, people think that, for instance, pharmaceutical industry is going to put money for research. It's not that what we mean when we want to boost the private investment in Spain. It's that just exactly this kind of things. We don't have charities. We don't have trust. We don't have people investing the 50 million euros. We don't have people with 50 million euros, maybe. You do. We do. Something that is important is that now is growing new initiatives in Spain, as I think she was trying to say, crowdfunding, where people, I mean, these kind of associations can be the link between people and science. Well, scientists also are people, a bit weird, but these two, exactly, to move the money from people to science. But also scientists have to communicate the science, because we have a big problem in Spain about this.
No, but there are charities in the UK, and the situation of the UK is closest to the United States of all Europe, the British Heart Foundation. Well, the largest funder of science in the UK is a charity, the Welcome Trust. All right, I think the Welcome Trust invests more than the Medical Research Council in science. But in Spain, you haven't got that. Yeah. The other problem is the industry. The industry is there to make money, yeah? To make money for the shareholder. And it will only invest in science if it needs science to make a better job. Yeah? There is, if you start looking at the industrial base in Spain, is the part of the industrial base which is creative in terms of innovation is small. So they don't require scientific knowledge to do what they are doing. That's the problem. Although Spain has all the ability to do things at the highest level, because the business school in Spain are the best in Europe. If you go to a business, there are of the 5 or 6 best business schools in Europe, 4 are in Spain. So it can be done. But the funding, when you're talking about industrial money, is not there because the industry doesn't require that you make a discovery in the university for them to use it to do a product.
We've got the technology.
True.
The problem is that we haven't realized that it might be cheaper to produce our own technology. So, a clear example of this is Porcelanosa, who is one of the lead of their field in construction of ceramics, and they're very lucky apparently because the type of ceramics they can produce locally, that is not, the competition doesn't do it, but they export all of the technology from Germany and Italy. I believe that the north of Italy could be an example for Spain, in the sense that we have a more similar culture in good and bad ways, but they realize that the industry realized that they have to produce their own technology, and they did this. So maybe this is what we're lacking in that sense. Sorry.
Well, but that's what's happening. The industrial base until now, it had 2 components: capital, yeah, and labor force. But in the last 25 years, has a 3rd component: capital, labor force, and knowledge.
But that was
The knowledge, but now it's becoming more and more and more and more important. Right? The capital, the labor is important, but the knowledge is becoming more and more and more important because innovation, the improvement in the production of things, the transfer of technology and all that are becoming the main economical activity. If you don't generate knowledge, you don't have anything to.
So do you believe that the problem in Spain is that people lack the scientific culture to understand what science can bring in the bigger picture?
I think there has been a problem of culture. I mean, Miguel de Unamuno didn't help very much by saying that Spain was not made to do science. I think the proof is there. Spain has the top scientists. And there is that feeling in Spain that Spain is not for doing science, and it's not true. I think it's a very bad mistake.
I'd like to, well, thank you very much for the talk, and I'd like to touch base on a couple of concepts that you have taught. One of them was the culture in Spain. Spain is so self-constrained, right? And there is a cultural component in there that needs to be changed, because when you said that there are scientists who come back to Spain and then they say, okay, we leave Spain because we cannot work here. But then there are those that come back to Spain, see how the game is played in Spain, and they don't change the game. They just play with the tools, and they got somehow corrupted, and they don't change the environment. You mentioned people coming to the CNIC and going straight to CSIC in order to get a permanent position. So one of my first questions is how the scientists could make a step forward and change that environment. And my second question goes to the scientific leaders in Spain and their lack of commitment towards creating that agency of science, or trying to build a scientific body that speaks about science and not about this political party or the other one. why Spain doesn't have those scientific leaders, or if we do have it, why don't they go together?
But the answer to the first question is, I think it's happening. If I compare the young Spanish people of 40 years ago who I met, compare with you, you are already thinking in a completely different way. You are already internationally connected and thinking about international science. And I think when you go back to Spain, you will have a completely different mentality. 20, 30 years ago, the people might have gone to the United States, live in a different system for a few years, but to be corrupted in that nice way is very easy. And I think we will be changing as the whole generation of you people go down and actually say, look, we really want to change things. Yeah. It would help if there is a top-down attitude that he will come, because at some point you will also be 50-year-old people and we will have an impact from the top. As far as scientific leadership is concerned, I have always been surprised that in Spain there are not many scientists who are politicians of science. In this country there are many examples of top scientists who at a certain point in their life become politicians of science. And I think they manage to combine science and combine politics. Paul Nurse is one of the examples. He is a very influential politician of science. He's still a scientist. But in Spain you don't see that very often. And I don't know why, but that is definitely needed. People at that level who have enough seniority, enough understanding of the thing that can have an influence.
I think maybe one of the reasons why in Spain we don't have these sort of charities, or we don't have scientific politicians or things like that, is because we don't have the general public doesn't have the same appreciation for science as they do here, for instance, in the UK. Here in the UK, the general public thinks of scientists as smart people that are going to invest in the development of the country somehow and help everyone here. While in Spain, I've encountered a situation where they think of you as a weirdo or as someone, a sort of parasite of the system that is living out of everyone's money. Do you have any ideas of how we could change that in Spain, so that people will respect the scientists and therefore maybe invest charitable donations to the science or something like that? Like make the general public appreciate science.
Well, the situation in the UK is not as straightforward as you say. Especially after the Second World War, science had a very bad name in the UK.
Yeah.
But these structures like the Royal Society and the big effort that has been made to reach the public, that has been slowly changing the attitude. Still, scientists are not generally appreciated as value for society. And I think Spain is behind that still. But there is a need for much more work at the level of educating the people. Not only because we need to be seen in a better light, but because the society depends more and more and more and more on science. People should have to know about science. But it's a long-term work. That's what I'm saying, the problem of the culture, the systematic work over many years, that changes the appreciations and the attitude.
We're going to allow a last question. You still want to?
Nice talk. Do you think that part of the problem of Spain is because the people that have the power, they don't listen to anyone? And that's, so everything that you can do
Are you
at the end,
we are not recording. Not recording anymore. Feel free to answer.
I think there is at the level of government there are enough people who understand science and who understand the importance of science. So the level of understanding of what science is in government is low.
but also in the university, some professors, they think that the project and they have this right, and if the student proves them maybe to change the hypothesis, I don't care. I work for the government, so I have a permanent job. So if you're not working my idea, I don't care. So I think that even in universities there is this feeling that you really cannot fight it.
Well, I don't think you can be so pessimistic. There are places. Well, I say, for example, in biomedicine, one of the very successful experiments is the CENIO, for example, working in cancer. That has been done over a period of 10 years. It's an institution where science is being carried out at a level which is recognized internationally. They are extremely good people and influential people. It's possible, and there are places in Catalonia and in Barcelona. There are very good places. I think we cannot be completely negative. There is still things to develop, but in my lifetime as a scientist in the last 40 years, things have already changed a lot. And I think they are moving in the right direction. And what groups like this will do is to accelerate that change for the better.
Well, I think we have to take this as a statement. Thank you. There is a window where we can improve the situation, and we will try to do it as well as possible. Just before, I want to thank again all the amazing work that is doing the London Working Group, especially to organize this seminar, because without the help of these people it wouldn't be possible. To celebrate that everything has been fantastic, we're going to have a couple of things to eat and drinks before we go to the pub, so there you will have the opportunity to talk with Professor Moncada if he wants to talk to you. And then